So I went to Catholic school on the southwest side where the nuns, I'm not saying they were encouraged to beat us with rulers, but it wasn't like discouraged. And one of the many ways that school screwed me up was by the time I graduated in 8th grade, I was convinced that I would get pregnant if I was like sneezed on. They told us such bad stories like 7th and 8th grade about really strong sperm and hot tubs and inferior underpants, and it really scarred me for a long time. So in my college years, in my 20s, like my main goal of life was not getting pregnant. And I have kind of an irregular cycle, and you know, I'm glad that we all know that about me, and we all feel closer. I do. So I would never get my period. So I was just convinced constantly that I was pregnant, and sometimes my period wouldn't show up so long that like I would have had the baby already by the time it actually showed up. So it's just a never-ending cycle of like pregnancy tests and fears and feeling wheezy, you know, feel like your boobs are sore and they're not really sore. I mean, it just goes on and on. So imagine the irony when I marry my husband and I have sex with him for over a year and I don't get pregnant and I go to the doctor and I'm branded, you know, infertile. And I'm like, you know, when something like that happens, I feel like you should get a rebate for the $24 a month that I spend at Walgreens for, I don't know, 18 years on birth control pills and the big variety pack of pregnancy tests. Like, you know, downside, infertile. Upside, here's all this money you spent that you get back because you have this condition. But I had this condition. So I go right into the fertility clinic, which is not a place that anybody really wants to hang out. They gave me like just a ton of tests, and I would, you know, get tons and tons of vials of blood drawn from me all the time, and I just would feel like really queasy about it all the time. A friend asked me, like, do you ever talk to people in the waiting room? And I'm like, kind of like, no, like, because none of us, you know, it's like a club that we don't want to be in. And making friends there would just make it too real. Like, at some point I went to, it was like a fertility yoga class, and my husband's like, yeah, good luck with that, Crystals. Let me know how it goes. So I go, and there's some couples there, and I was really impressed that they got, like, their partners to come with them. And we're sitting around the room, and the woman who's leading the thing is like, you know, that fertility patients have the same amount of depression as chemotherapy patients. And I'm like, what? That is crazy. And everybody else in the room had kind of been through this more often. It was just kind of like, yeah, like they were really familiar with that. And one of the husbands in the room was like, you know, well, we're just going to do whatever it takes. I was like, dude, you know, it's not up to us, is it? Because if it was, like, none of us would even be in this room. It was just so hard. You wanted your body to do a certain thing, and then you'd hear stuff like that frickin', like, Mary Jo Kopechne, what's her name? The middle school teacher who hit on her student, like she gets knocked up on conjugal visit with the student, with the middle grade student. I'm like, are you serious? Like she gets pregnant on conjugal visit, and I have to go to the clinic every week. Britney Spears is having kids left and right, and I'm getting blood drawn out of me by the gallon. It's so not fair. You know, we thought we'd be cool with it. You know, we thought we'd be like the cool couple who, you know, gave too big presents and had way too many kids calling us aunt and uncle that we weren't related to. But, you know, there's part of me that still wanted it, so it kept going in. So, you know, different processes go in. Because my body, you know, apparently was hella fucked up. Lots of drugs, which made my sparkly personality like even more sparkly with the hormones. And then the needles started. I go in for it was like my injection consultant, and she really lost her true calling, which was to be an auctioneer. She's just going like a mile a minute and talking about like stabbing myself at some fleshy part, which fortunately, you know, is not a problem. And it had to be at the same time every day. And I worked at the Chicago History Museum at this time, and I had this great office that looked out onto Lincoln Park. So it had to be the same time every day, so it was like 5 o'clock. So I went in and, stabbed myself, and I look out and there's all these skate punks, like on the park up there looking up at me like I look like some like crank head, middle-aged lady shooting up in my office. Like, all right, skate punks, you'll understand this someday. I once shot up in the bathroom at the Tuncat at a happy hour. Like, these are just the things that you had to do. That was the follicle shot. There was another shot that I shoot into my abdomen that, if you ever wonder what that thing was in the trunk in Pulp Fiction, I'm pretty sure it was the shot. It came from some magical place like Finland or Omaha, and like this dry ice, and it would show up once a month, and I had to shoot it like this. So I'm juggling, the drugs and the blood and the shooting, and God forbid, get this all right, and then that one weekend, and then it's time, and the husband's like, I'm tired. I'm like, oh no, this is a big project. There's a lot going on. I know you had to give that one sperm sample, and I'm sure that sucked that day, but you have no idea what's going on here. So let's get on board. So that took forever to get that right. I remember one time, like, I had everything else right, and then the magical shot didn't show up that day. It just, and I wasn't even like, that wasn't even that bad. I was just drugs and shots. I didn't even go into like IVF and IUI. I remember I was talking to a friend whose wife was doing it, and he's like, and then I have to give her these shots in her butt, and I just feel so bad about like inflicting that pain on my partner. I'm like, really? Like, what about when they leave their stuff on the floor? You don't feel that bad? I would be okay with that. So we finally get it right, and I can tell you exactly. It was like 10 years ago today, because it was Valentine's Day 2006, so yesterday, that they knew, like, the shot had come on time and everything was right. We actually had sex. So that week, when I went in for my weekly blood suckage, they're like, oh yeah, your HCG is through the roof. Come back in for the ultrasound. So we get in for the ultrasound, and they start typing on the little thing. They're like, well, Gwen triplets. I'm like, oh, what? Don't type that, that's insane. That sounds crazy. They're like 3 sacks. And, unfortunately or unfortunately, whatever, poor sack B didn't have a heartbeat. And you know how like technicians know everything? So the technician was like, don't worry, you're gonna have twins. A and C are gonna eat B. It sounds a little weird, but you'll be fine. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm at a fertility clinic. I'm not an idiot. Like, I know there's a pretty good chance that there's going to be a multiple. But when we were leaving, like, all the doctors came out and they're like, oh man, we're so sorry. Like, we just didn't think you were going to do that well. So we really shot you up. Like, I'm lucky I didn't have like a litter. Like, I'm looking at those cribs online, like, I hope you don't mind going to community college. I don't have any money. What are we going to do? So the funny part after that was my husband and me like saying goodbye in the parking garage. Like, it was like a really awkward like goodbye after a one-night stand. Like, all right, we'll see ya. Bye. Call me. Yeah, we should talk about the litter we're having. I went to dinner and I'm like, I'm eating for 4. I'm gonna have oysters Rockefeller. I don't even know what that is. So that all happened, and then. The twins stayed with me, and I was on bed rest, which is pretty common with twins. And, but and they're like, oh, that sounds so great, bed rest. Like, no, it fucking sucks. Like, you're just terrified the whole time. I was terrified to go to the bathroom. I just laid there and like rediscovered my college soap. It was not fun. But finally, they thought, everyone's telling me like, oh, you're not going to be pregnant in November. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because I love Halloween. I'm like, yay, Halloween birthday parties forever. And then November came, and they're like, oh, we don't care if you go back to work now. Like, you go ahead, you're 36 weeks. So at this point, this is so mean. My husband is so mean. I know he's not coming off really well in this story. Maybe he'll never see this. We had read that Henry VIII, when he died of gout, he had a 48-inch waist. Oh, no. And I'm like, stop measuring me, all right? I was 50, and I'm not that tall, so I'm basically like a round person. So I go back to work, and I'm driving the minivan. I don't know how I drove. I don't know how I like reached the pedals or the wheel. And I would go into the Einstein Bagels, and they're like, we're sorry, please don't give birth in here. We think your water just broke, we're pretty sure. But so I waddled around like an offshore island for a couple of weeks, and then ironically then at last they had to induce me after all this. Okay, and then the twins arrived, and I wrote all this out. I wrote like 5,000 words about my infertility and my bed rest pregnancy. Because I had nothing else to do, and then twins arrived, and I had no time to do anything. I didn't write another word. Actually, the twins and Facebook arrived in the world around the same time. And I know we can all bitch about Facebook, but I'm kind of glad, because some of that stuff comes back that I posted that I wouldn't have written anywhere else. And there's one that really occurs to me, that the twins are about 4, and my girl had just picked up this weird Burt Reynolds laugh from Cannonball Run or something, and she'd just be wandering around and go, hee hee. I'm like, what the, where's that from? And then my son was at pre-K and asked to write something, or draw a picture of something that he was thankful for, and he drew a picture of the Febreze bottle. I don't know what that means, about me, about our house, we really love Febreze. But stuff like that just happens all the time. I've talked here before, but today, if you go to the avclub.com today, my twins got to talk to the creator of their favorite TV show, Gravity Falls. And it's hilarious and awesome and adorable, and they're still rocking my world every day. And sometimes when they drive me crazy, this weekend when I'm sick and they're off school, and I'm like, hey, you get a play date anywhere, just go play with the garbage guys in the street, it looks fun. But I never forget how much I went through to get here, But honestly, that school kind of literally beat the spirituality out of me, but now with the kids, and I look at them, and I don't know how anybody, a lot of us moms in this room, I don't know how we go through that experience and not feel like there's some kind of magic and wonder in the universe, because I live with it. I'm lucky enough to live with it every day. Thank you.